I'm Daria. This is the Higher Authority. To my right, I have Doug Wald, Aaron Frenchman, and extremely excited today to have Chris Coluccio to my left. Chris has so much going on, so much that we're going to cover today that you're really going to want to tune in today. Chris, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
I know, it's
love
so
it.
exciting.
I love you guys. This is really
This is
exciting
cool.
for me to be a part of this. So I love it. This
Yeah.
is great. And I said it's even though I'm crazy, I would always make time for this. So.
I love it. I know you're always busy.
Yeah.
You always have stuff going on. So let's talk about first Techworks.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, Techworks. We're almost a 25-year-old company.
Stop it, really?
Yeah, which is absolutely crazy. So which means I started it when I was in my 20s, and I can't even imagine.
Wow.
In the we started the business in a McDonald's in Oakdale. Me and a partner, me and a guy was sitting there, and he sold me computers, and I had a client that was needed, and I was like, why don't we just start a business? And he's like, sure. We were sitting in a McDonald's, and then we were like, yeah. And then all of a sudden, our office was across the street from that McDonald's at one point, right? So, so it was great. And then maybe about 6 or 7 years ago, I bought my partner out of the business, and now I own it completely. And we're we're a full-service IT shop in Ronkonkoma. Really focused on doing IT work on the island, helping our clients grow. Using technology reasonably, not just for the sake of technology, and really trying to give clients the concept of return on investment, as opposed to just you need to buy this, you need to buy that, you need to buy that. So using IT as a business tool, as opposed to a necessary evil that most people think it is. It's like a lot of businesses, and I don't blame them, would love to pay $0 for some of their technology.
For sure.
But so that's what we do. We're really broken into kind of three parts. We're what's called a managed service provider.
Okay.
A managed service provider does monthly serviced IT. We charge you usually one price. We take care of most everything that goes on in that organization. Help desk. Sometimes you have an internal IT person. Sometimes you don't. We run for our largest client is over 2,000 people and one IT guy. So with 70 locations, and so they have on-staff IT, and we support that on-staff IT and do their help desk. And sometimes they don't have any on-staff IT, and we're their security and services and basically everything that they would need to manage that for them. Usually, most of those businesses are somewhere, less than 100 or so people, or under 200 people. They don't necessarily need an IT person full-time on staff. So that's the managed service side of the house, right, which is kind of your everyday IT and servers and those kind of stuff. On the other side of the house, we have infrastructure, which is wiring, cabling, low voltage, communications, access control, card swipes, cameras, that kind of stuff. So we do some very large jobs. We're on a run right now that's like 600 cables. So we've done that for years. My background is a little bit in construction. I was originally a civil engineer before I started.
Wait, really? I didn't even know.
Well,
that.
it was my degree that I was going for when I went to Northeastern, and I was working for Northeastern's a co-op school, and so I would go and I worked on the Big Dig in Boston, and I started wiring cables for them.
Which just finished.
Just finished.
20 years later.
It just fell apart and finished again, and
Yeah, they're replacing everything.
Yeah. So I worked on that. I worked on what was called the Bird Island Approach Path years ago. Got thrown into doing that, and I was doing cable and wiring stuff like you would for tech, and then using computers, helping these guys out with their computers. And then I took another job down here with a company called Island Lath and Plaster, and they were a big organization, big construction company, and I was doing work for them, and I was fixing their computers and helping them on a network. And I remember one of the guys sitting next to me was who was doing some work, looks at me, goes, "You're always working on computers. Why don't you go get your degree in computers?" And I was like, okay, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
So I left Northeastern. I got down to Dowling College. Honestly, a much better education than I ever got in Northeastern. Dowling College was a fantastic school. It's a shame that it's not around anymore.
No.
What a
My husband went there.
So many people I know, so many people that I went to school with and went there, and so many people that are really like industry leaders in our area went out of that school in the 90s. And what just a fantastic school it was, especially in the computer science at the time. And so I went there, and like I said, I met a friend of mine who was, in the business, computer business degree school, and we were working together, and that's kind of how Techworks started. So I moved back down and went to Dowling and for computer science, and got another co-op and started Techworks. That's it.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's a great
So crazy story. Don't know how it happened. I was never planning on doing this stuff.
Those are the best things.
But
Yeah.
but 25 years later, we're almost 45 people, and it's crazy, nuts.
That's amazing.
So I missed the third part. While we go back to that, we also do consulting, and consulting and compliance is another big piece of what we do. So that the consulting and the compliance is that business planning moving forward, or if you're in a specific industry like HIPAA or CMMC for manufacturers, we help do audits and compliance for that kind of stuff. So we have consultants that are specialized, what they call SMEs in those areas, to help those businesses prior to being audited, make sure they have all their stuff together, so they don't walk into an audit and kind of look stupid.
Oh, I didn't even know that you did that.
Or do long-term business vision planning, right? Okay, so it's like, you should be predicting your technology with AI and all this other stuff. You should be looking at 3 years out. It's about a good time you can predict. What are you going to do over 3 years? How are you going to work that back to a year? It's like, I want to have this full AI program, and I'm still running on my old Linksys router from my house, like, all right, well, there's somewhere we got to fix that, right? So that's that vision planning, kind of like put tech out about 3 years, which is, we base it off of the EOS model, if you've ever heard of Traction.
Yeah.
So we've modified Traction for our organization. We use Traction and the EOS model for our organization. We've modified that to how we deal with our clients with technologies. This 3-year plan back to a 1-year plan, back to kind of 90-day goals. Yeah.
Very interesting.
So, just speaking of that, when most businesses you deal with, where do you see people spending money or having technology that doesn't fit that 3-year model? It's already 3 years outdated, and where should people be spending their capital and investing in?
So right now, expending capital would be have somebody in your office going and getting serious AI training. I sent my CFO down to a meeting that was hands-on for our industry, going out. So really, a lot of it's training right now, because there's so much going on. In order to be flexible enough, you have to have some people who know what's going on in that industry. So the equipment is, you have to have good backbone, you have to have good equipment, you have to have that stuff running. But right now, you need to be creative. You need to know what's going on in this industry. So sending my CFO down to this place where he was actually building the products that we were going to be using with AI with another company, cost me like $5,000 to send him down there, worth every penny, right? The $2,300 for the class, the trips, everything that had to go down there. So much so that now I'm going back down and taking the same class in a couple of weeks, because that kind of stuff, getting people that are on board and getting people who want to live in what it means to do AI nowadays, and it's not the chat GPTs that we think of. It's totally different. Stuff, It's enterprise, it's agentic workers, it's robotic process automation. It's a completely different world than what you see on the front end, what everybody's talking about. And once you get in there and you start using Claude and even Office 365 with the Copilot apps and really understanding what these things can do for your business and looking at that as a real return on investment, because we're looking at, we're hoping to be able to grow almost 20% with the same exact number of people that we have. So
we hear that a lot.
So AI for the small businesses, these big businesses, they're going to lay off people because they're over bloated and they can get efficiencies. Right. Us, we want to be bigger. We can grab efficiency out of that. So therefore, you can scale with the same number of people that you have if you start to look at AI. So my answer is you really got to invest in AI training and AI governance and looking at that stuff. And there's some classes and there's some places you can go that will. And Techworks is actually going to be doing this for our clients. We're going to be doing a university with another vendor of ours, so that our guys can get the same kind of training that we got, so that they can be up on using Claude and using these things to vibe code and to use agentic work and that kind of stuff. Because we think that's the way our clients are going to move forward. And it's not cheap. It may even require hiring somebody to do it. But even just bringing a consultant like me or somebody else in to do that work, you have to change the culture around it. I'm not going to be able to do that for you. I might be able to get one process out. Might be able to help you make an app. I might be able to get some automations or teach your team on the basics and getting them primed. But you need to, that's where the money is right now. You need to have somebody who's really bought into that. It's a different game nowadays. You're starting to look at companies that don't have to buy software. Like we're looking at now software that we were looking to purchase. Right. We made with AI in a month and a half period of time.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So the software development companies and looking at each different piece of there's so many companies out there that are struggling right now with, am I going to go and buy a new piece of software that's going to run my business? And right now I'm telling a lot of them, it doesn't really matter what software you have. It matters whether your data integrity is correct, because then we can link just about any piece of software you use, if you have all the data, into a new front end that's AI, and start to work with that stuff and start to get information and think about it completely different. So the back end company, we use a piece of software called ConnectWise. I've been with it for 20 years, right? It's not the greatest piece of software, but it's got all my data in it, and it's really, really organized. So taking that into AI, taking that into AI, still using it on the front end, but taking it into AI to get my technicians better data when somebody calls in. Like the software doesn't matter as much anymore. It's the data integrity that matters, making sure you have good data, and making sure that you're training your user, your people on how to use that stuff properly.
And so you can get so much more granular in what the programs do with AI, with prompts, and really drilling it down where an off-the-shelf, people buy off-the-shelf anymore.
I don't know.
You're dating yourself.
The giant box.
Oh yeah, you missed the Comp USA. Yeah. You bought one piece of software and you got a receipt this big.
Right. But yeah, to be able to even just little AI stuff where you can keep tweaking the prompt, and it eventually drills it down into so fine a point.
So you mentioned something again. It's prompt engineering. Is the people who know how to prompt well. It was like back in the day. I would say one of the things that made a difference for me as a technician, right, and as an engineer moving forward was I was really good at searching Google. I knew how to ask the questions. I knew where to go. I knew those things. So that made me a much better technician and engineer than some of my peers, because that's what you needed to learn. You needed to know how to find this stuff, where it was. The difference was what data engines were going to, what search engines were going to give you this and give you that. And by being able to do that and being able to search well and prompt Google well, it made me successful, partially, I think. And I think that's the same thing you're going to see with AI. Those people who know how to prompt AI properly, to understand what it's giving you, to get more out of it, like that's a new skill set. That is a new skill set. No, that's dumb AI. Like I have to do those things, and being able to push back on this technology and this knowledge that's there. So AI prompting is just massive right now.
And that's something we're heading into in terms of AEO, right? For search engines, and how do we restructure our content to meet those prompts, and so people search firms and things
it's
like that.
Crazy now, because now obviously, like, I use browsers, whether it's Google or I use Brave or Startpage or these other ones, and all of them come up with an AI prompt answer to your prompt first. But that's crazy, because they all made their money on links out to all these things, and now they're just you're getting my website and all the information about my website without ever having to visit my website. So what am I paying for if I'm Google? So that whole model's
and they're
got to
looking
change.
for the monetary model of how they're going to
and it's interesting. I mean, you obviously have you look like an OpenAI IPO is coming out soon, right?
And the rest, for sure. Which is a great question around adoption, Chris. What your clients are adopting to this point, like what are they seeing? Because there's that gray matter, right, in AI. Do I do it? What are the costs? Of my staff, are they going to buy into it? So what are you seeing around adoption at that level? And it's scaling up, I'm sure. And then your integration points, looking at different areas where, so like the BYOD devices, like, people wanted to come in and say, all right, well, I want an Apple phone. No, I want a Samsung phone. I have to do all these things. So looking at just collective adoption and what you're seeing in the market, and then what are you seeing for integrations and where you're able to plug and play and be able to keep those businesses moving, keep the continuity going, keep the business applications going. So kind of what are you seeing in the market?
So I think we've seen kind of, I broke this down actually. I was on the radio yesterday with Jay Oliver, and we were talking a little bit about this same topic, and we've seen kind of it break into kind of three dynamics for businesses, right? You have a group of people that are putting their heads in the sand and just hoping it goes away, or they'll catch up when they need to. And this is your typical like Pareto curve, right? This isn't much different than everything else.
Wait for your change.
Right. Like the kind of people that they still have a flip phone, right? If they could.
Exactly,
and I'm getting back to that point. I went this way, and I might go back to. I wish I just had a flip phone, right? And then you have some people who are on the way other side who are like these cowboys, right? And some of those cowboys got burnt a little bit. There's some stories of Markham did earlier, and some other organizations that started putting their data out there, and they said everybody go out and do, and they didn't really build governance.
No governance, right?
They didn't build governance. They didn't build compliance. They didn't know the difference between the open web and the private web. I mean, the open AI and the private AIs, and doing that kind of stuff. And then you have these companies that are kind of split two in the middle that really want to get into it, right? They're getting into it well, and they've started to build, like we just put out an AI governance policy, acceptable use policy that tells our clients this is only the products that you're allowed to use. You can't use these products, if they're not approved by TechWorks. But you have RAIN access, and we started training them, and we started building that kind of process around that and letting AI actually do some of the training. And then you kind of have these other people that are dipping their toes into ChatGPTs and that kind of stuff. And they're using it, to form emails or to get maybe some business advice and to do that kind of stuff. So that's kind of how it's broken out in the adoption field. And again, it's a typical curve that you would see. But I think that a lot of our clients now are coming to us and saying, all right, what's the plan, right? What's the plan moving forward? What are we going to do with this? And, are we going to go out and, you're seeing what we call the stack, right? Your stack is all the stack of products that you buy. And those stack of products are all saying, I have AI, I have AI, I have AI, I have AI. And some of them do. Some of them are fine. And
walkers and talkers.
But again, it's only for that piece of the business, right? And you still need something in the middle, some database of your stuff to kind of bring that all together, or hooks into that data. And that's where something like a Claude comes in, or even Microsoft. Or there's plenty of them out there that do that, where you can say, okay, I know that ConnectWise, as an example, the product that we use, is coming out with their AI product, but we could do the same thing that AI product is doing by taking Claude and giving it access to read this and access to read that, and then give that client a plan on how to do that stuff moving forward. So we don't, there's no write access to our databases yet. It's just read all this data. And just by reading all this data, again, we created an app in a few months that would have taken probably years, or we would have had to purchase. So I think that's what we're looking at is, most of our clients are somewhere in that journey. But I think that everybody, almost whether they know it or not, is using AI in some way.
For sure.
Right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Practical application search or whatever, content development.
Yeah, even, I think the adoption rate on even just using a digital assistant, right? Which, again, is not agentic work.
Right.
It's not these robots that are doing process automation. It's not this other stuff that we're talking about, is like in the 78th percentile.
Right.
If you go out, it's like 78.
Siri, whatever.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, again, that lends itself to other problems. We see some of our even technicians, engineers using this stuff and not necessarily getting all the best answers, and so understanding that the data sometimes is hallucinating or isn't right for the situation. Has to be done. But overall, I don't know that it's not going anywhere. And I think what you need to do is have people training it that have the best intentions and the best business case uses. Because, listen, if you're a great plumber, you might not need AI. If you have a great welder, you might not need AI. Right. It might help your business, but those guys are always going to be busy because I'm always going to call them up on Christmas Eve when Well,
they'll be busy, but to design systems, to design certain things, to govern, to secure, they're still going to need it. I mean, they're going to need it at some point.
I think I think the concept now is that, and we used to say this when we were doing, almost every business is a tech business that just happens to do whatever they do. Now almost every business is an AI business that just happens to do that thing. And I don't, I steal that from Simon Sinek. It's not my thing, but that's his old thing that, almost every business now is some kind of AI tech company that happens to be really good at something else.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Just
fair.
it's a matter of whether AI affects the front of the house or the back of the house.
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's definitely a big concept too. Yeah.
So, I mean, again, if you're a welder, it's not affecting the front of the house.
Yeah.
It's not affecting how you weld.
Right.
But it's affecting how you run your business.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, it's one of those things that when it came out, I am the old school. I am that person that you're like, ugh. That's me. I mean, I'm embracing it now. I definitely am. I see the advantages of AI, but when it first came out, I was like, oh, what is this now?
Yeah, I'm still like that too.
Are you?
Oh yeah, no. If you ask my office, I'm very still hesitant on making sure that we use it correctly, or it doesn't get used when it shouldn't be used.
Okay.
When you're writing emails, it's like anything
Sure.
else. Taking the personality out of that stuff. Sure, helping it to write that. But again, I don't want to lose what I want to make sure, just as general in my convictions of kind of of life and how we should move forward. I don't want to lose the human parts and what we're good at. So you
Right.
take something. I go back. I say, they stopped teaching our kids cursive, right?
Right.
Because nobody's going to use cursive. But the reason you were teaching them cursive wasn't for the cursive. It was for the fine motor skills.
Right.
It was for the focus and
And the
detail
structure.
to attention.
Sure.
It was for the structure. And it was for their ability. And now, because they don't do those kind of things, now they can't read a paragraph.
Right.
That's they wind up
Right.
changing the
Right.
SAT
Yeah, yeah,
to
Right.
short segments
Yeah,
as
yeah.
opposed to
Yeah.
700 words because kids
Right.
can't read it.
Right.
Well, that's so I don't want that same stuff happening. You don't want to lose that that sense of actually what it means to be human, right? In a way.
Well, of
and
course.
that's so you're starting to see that you're gonna meet somebody who has the best resume and they wrote this beautiful essay, and then all of a sudden they sat down with you in front of you, and you're like, wow, this person can't even
Yeah.
spell.
Welcome
right?
to our
Can't even
world.
write.
Right. Well, that's executive
Right.
alliance in a
Welcome to our
nutshell.
world.
I
Yeah.
mean, recruiters, you can't use an AI recruiter. You can't because that
There's
human
things that can supplement.
component-
Similarly, there's things
Yeah.
that can supplement the business, but
But-
when it comes to human interaction and how are you engaged, how are you in front of a client,
Right.
how are you in a challenging situation,
I had
so we see
a
that
friend of
quite a
mine who used to, when he was taking people out and interviewing them, he would take them to lunch.
Right.
He would see if they would open the door. He would
Oh,
see if they would
interesting.
put
Yeah,
salt,
yeah.
how they dealt with the waiters.
treated staff.
Right.
He would
Yeah,
have.
yeah, yeah.
He was the sneaky guy. He would have them bring their food out wrong
Yeah.
and see what they did and see how they dealt with
Right,
it.
right.
Yeah.
Right?
These fries are cold.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah, and if they got frustrated, nervous, how they
Interesting.
dealt with that kind of stuff,
That's
and that's
cool. I
one of
like
the
that.
so he would be like, let's go out to lunch, and
Yeah.
he would
Right.
he one of the things, and I think this was actually in one of the books that he wrote, was like he would watch whether people would put salt on his stuff, because he's like, anybody who comes in and just grabs the salt and puts it on
Right, yeah.
has some kind of conviction about them that they know that's the thing that they
Right,
like.
yeah.
Right.
Very weird,
Yeah, yeah,
kind
yeah.
of quirky things.
That's
about
interesting.
That.
Behavioral interactions and
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
That's
very
definitely cool.
interesting.
It's funny because I have a group of industry people that I have a back and forth with on a daily basis. And one of the things we were talking about was all of the emails that we get trying to sell us AI software.
Oh, yeah.
And we can help recruiting. And I got a message from they sent me a LinkedIn connection request and a whole paragraph. And part of his pitch was, we're going to take the guesswork and the gut feeling out of recruiting. And I responded back to him. I said, that's what recruiting is.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't replace that with your AI
It's about the relationship.
software,
No.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I'll tell you some of the cool things that, or scary things that are going on is that, when we go in our office, when we hire somebody, we use a DISC profile, right?
Yeah,
right?
some of our clients do,
Right.
yeah.
We also use another profile called Working Genius, right? And a basic cognitive test that we give to this. So we don't do that and not tell them,
Yeah.
this is what you got,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
This
yeah,
is where your preferences
Yeah,
are.
yeah, yeah.
We've put that into AI, and AI tells us now, hey, if you're in a meeting with this person, you could actually ask them, like, I'm having trouble talking to this person right now, based on their personality, based off of this, this is how they like to be talked to. This is how, and it really creates a lot of, it's both scary
Yeah,
and,
that's very scary.
because if you think about it on the back end, that's probably what all of these people that are stealing our data,
Are
called
doing-
stealing it, we're
Yeah.
giving it to
Right,
them.
right,
They're
for sure.
doing that to us with their algorithms and
Right.
everything
Absolutely.
else. So what I'm doing in order to try to help our staff communicate better with each other and give them that kind of stuff, they're using, to sell me some kind of, cleaning product or something like that or whatever, or, something I really probably don't want.
Listen, I don't mind the algorithms
another
that give me all
vacuum
the
if you,
shoes that I might like to buy.
Yeah.
I'm happy with it.
another
I'm fine with
vacuum.
it.
It's like, yes. So
That's wonderful. Final thoughts?
Yeah, no, and also gives a call to action on TechWorks.
So TechWorks, you can go to maketechwork.com. Love to have you there. We almost start all of our things with a network or a technology assessment, which is just, let's talk about what you got. If you don't know what you don't know, how do you know where you're going? So we do these assessments. They work great. They're a great business assessment to just talk. And even if you don't use us, you can get all your people on the same page you can understand that, you need to focus on your infrastructure more than your AI. Like if you have no infrastructure and everything's a mess and your data's a mess, don't go to AI, right?
Right,
So
exactly.
a good assessment like that is a great way to start. So,
Aaron, any final thoughts?
No, just, can't extend enough how much we appreciate you being here and
wonderful.
talking about all the things you've talked about, all very important.
well, guys, thank you so
Thank
This
you.
has
much.
been so
Yeah, great
great.
to have you.
It's
Absolutely.
amazing.
This has been
Yeah, really appreciate it.
fantastic. This has really been wonderful. I'm so
I
glad
love the
you're bringing it.
conversation. I love talking to you guys. You guys are awesome. I know I talk a lot too, so I'm
So
That's
do I.
good. That's good. Welcome,
Totally.
welcome to the club.
Yeah.
It's the
But
same
no,
here.
this is wonderful. I really appreciate you guys. I appreciate all you guys do too. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
This has been great.
couldn't have spent my morning in a better place.
Oh, wonderful. Well, this has been The Higher Authority. If you have any questions or comments, please contact us at info@execsally.com. Thanks. Have a great day.